Hi guys, and welcome to this week's Q&A. I'm your temporary host as Mod Archie is over in Japan now. So later in the stream, Mod Ash will be demonstrating his party group maker for the Raids dungeons coming out later the year. And so, well, let's introduce everyone, starting with you.
I'm Mod Mac.
I'm Mod Rock.
I'm Mod Jed.
Mod Ash.
And I'm Mod Kieran. So the first question from D-Close to OSRS, is there any chance we could see more in-world applications for construction? Think about shortcuts such as bridges, houses, anvil plots in designated areas.
We did do a whole suggestion of them for the artisan skill, couldn't we?
We did.
We could just poll that lot.
We certainly could.
Yeah.
I personally like the idea of, at least you could build shortcuts, that sort of thing. With the hidey holes next week, construction will be used for those. I think that fits in very nicely with that.
The thing we always ran into with bridges is that you make a bridge that's not there for most people, but is there for people who've built it. And then you go and stand on it. So that's fine for people who've built the bridge themselves and can see it. For anyone else, they see you standing on a bridge that isn't there for them, and it might look a little strange. But it's certainly something we can do. Although we might want to make the bridge look broken for some people and fixed for others. A bit like that one in Search for the Maiki, or that rather simpler one in Horror from the Deep. That's one way of dealing with it.
Yeah, the one you can slide across the edge.
Yeah, it's not the world's best implementation of one. And the one for Search for the Maiki is weird.
Could you not put some sort of ghost bridge that completes itself once so people see the outline of the bridge? But
yeah, that's the thing. If we're okay with people seeing you walk on an outline of a bridge, then fine.
I mean, if it was essentially a hotspot on the live world, that fits in with construction. It doesn't necessarily look
that would be a bit weird for players who maybe aren't going to do that, to have all these ghost things floating around. So.
It's all right when you're in building mode for your house, I guess.
Of course, there's other ways of getting across a body of water. Like we could let you use a construction skill to build something you then chuck into the water to make a stepping stone, and then you can jump across it.
Could build a trebuchet, sit in said trebuchet, pull the lever and...
Would it make that sound effect?
Yeah, and take damage when you hit the other side. Kind of like, was it Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner?
I did love Roadrunner. Roadrunner was a fantastic show.
Yeah, was good.
But next up, Lugarius is asking, is there any way we can convince you to adopt Gentle Tractor's redesign of Zaire?
Now, we are going to do some of it, as we mentioned before. We're going to take his design and put it on what's already there. Problem we've got with the remaking the entire thing is it's such a big job to remake the entire map that the actual effort of doing it isn't worth the return we're going to get from it. So we're going to take what we can from it, and he's designed a few bits for us already and make it look significantly better. And we'll do that for the next batch, which is September-ish, maybe October. See how we go.
With the launch of Raids, I believe.
Yes, yeah, along with the launch of Raids. So.
And later in that time period, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So lots of people have been asking, are there any plans to make changes to Dead Man mode this season?
see, while I think the idea is good, perhaps putting it mid-season is a bit awkward, because then you've got the players that obviously had to suffer pre-change, and then everyone else gets the new changes. So depending on what those changes are, would be whether it's beneficial or not.
Certainly one of the things that got proposed was to change the XP multiplier so it wasn't so generous as you got to the higher levels of the skills. And doing that mid-season would kind of defeat the point, because people who are already at those levels ain't going to stop being at those levels in the same way. So
it's the people that are lower that need to catch up, isn't it? So.
One of the things we were talking about earlier was what a wonderful thing about seasons is we can change everything for next season. And that's probably the next step we'll start looking at for most things.
And the duration of a season doesn't have to be 3 months every time either.
Exactly.
So is there anything in mind for the changes for next season?
Not yet. I'm still collecting feedback. I think we had a chat about potentially making it 1 month long next season rather than 3 months. But again, this is all stuff we have to weigh up over the next couple of months, see how it goes. What else were we talking about earlier?
Could we not stagger seasons, as in start one season, so say that's for a period of time, 6, 8 weeks, whatever, and then a couple of weeks later, as in start another one, so there's always one that's in a slightly different state to each other.
I think a good idea that we were thinking of was to have the 1 month season and then go straight into the tournament, but where you don't lose your stats, So
That's right, yeah.
you'd lose all your items that you've built up over that month, but you'd keep your account, and then it would just be a sake of competing over PVM to get back the items that you would have earned for the month before.
There's a whole load of different suggestions, and we could try one thing next season, and then we could try something else the season afterwards. We could just keep trying different things and keeping it fresh and interesting.
Shorter seasons would benefit the players because then they'd be able to see the changes roll in more often. Would build the game mode that they want more quicker.
I believe it was Mod Ronan posted a thread on Reddit, and a lot of community feedback and suggestions came in, and it was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And will really help us make the decision with what to do next season.
There's also the matter of the permanent one that's still sitting there, and whether some of the things that we've done with the seasonal game might be well received in it, like a GE.
Yeah.
We're open to it. I've had people say do not ever do these things to Permanent Dead Man because they will ruin it. I've had other people say they want it, and I'm not quite sure which way to go. And I'm certainly not going to try and do it by counting tweets yes or no.
Yes, indeed.
Although a straw poll might not be bad.
Yeah,
I'm running
we
straw
can definitely
poll.
do that.
we have a
Straw
straw
poll for, do you want to see the G in the permanent Dead Man mode version? So while that's going on, we'll move on. Real Crescents is asking, can walls be added around the houses in Zaire? This would give Zaire more of a medieval appearance and make it feel more organised. So I think that really ties in with the gentle tractor design that we addressed earlier. And I think that really falls under that, the same sort of umbrella there.
One of the things I liked about that previous design is that there was a lot more use of geography to split things up, but less plonker wall. I mean, if you take the Ardoin wall, for example, there's nothing pretty about that. And while I'm sure Gareth could build a beautiful wall if we spent enough dev time on it, I'd still rather see if we could do it with natural things like a river was one of the things we talked about that Gareth maybe could fit in.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely, yeah.
And I'd rather see it that way rather than have more straight lines.
Yeah.
Make everything look more square, which was one of the... I mean, it's quite interesting, one of the big criticisms about it was it looks really square. And the reason it was designed that way was because all the cities in RuneScape are very square, which is quite interesting.
That's the thing, I think it's a little bit between the two. Because it's so big, it sort of looks like a continent in itself. And, well, it very much is the start of the continent, and this is just one city on it, more so than this is it. And I think when the rest of the shapes of the rest of the shape of Zaire comes out, I think it'll look a lot more natural.
Given that RuneScape's maps are, of course, divided up as squares in their files, it has, of course, been very tempting for developers over the years to make things that look kind of square. Take, say, the south of Karamja, south of Musa Point. You'll find that you've got square for Tobolwano, square for Shiloh, square for Karazi, 3 squares even. And the whole thing's kind of very modular, made out of blocks. So we tried to get away from that with Zaire. We really did. And the houses, Arceus, Piscarilis, etc., their divisions do not line up with our map files at all. We did get away from those squares quite effectively. Unfortunately, we appear to have drawn a whole load of, quadrilateral type things anyway, which was not quite what we intended, but it does seem to
It's remarkable the amount of quests you can see on the map that take place in one little square, like Fight Arena is a really bad one for that.
Your Fight Arena, you got your Tree Gnome Village, you got your Battlefield, you got your Ardoin, other Ardoin. It's very obvious in the south of Kandarin, just where our map squares happen to be, and of course the music triggers on them. But for Zaire, we tried to get away from it. It just ended up looking kind of, full of rectangles anyway.
So Can't Ever Even asks, can we get the Karen teleport added to the portal chamber in the POH?
That would be nice.
It would be lovely. I'm not sure there's a hotspot space for it though, because the developers who wrote all that did tend to go all the way.
Same issue we normally encounter.
What we can do is add one to something else in New Kind of Room.
Yep. I think, to be honest...
You know the Xeric's talisman? Would they be able to mount that?
Yeah, we mount that in the forthcoming jewellery thingy.
That should be able to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think, to be honest, I think we do have scope for another portal chamber, which would be essentially copy paste of the other ones with the different teleports offered.
I'd like it to feel different if it's going to be a separate portal chamber, but the principle's fine.
Perhaps have something like an Arceus portal, or something similar, like a lunar portal room, or kind of almost a themed one to help, depending on...
Something that makes it fit in a little more than...
Because I tend to run around on Ancients, and the only way I really get to Zaire without having to move my house there is the amulet.
Yeah.
And the 3 points that are on the amulet for if I want to dive into the catacombs and stuff like that aren't exactly helpful because I tend to go to the middle of the island.
So what we can do is create some kind of room of mysticism, a bit like the study exists for making things that look like you make them in a study with lectern and such like, and telescope, and maybe make a sort of magician's workshop where we maybe let you decorate it to feel like it's the necromancy room where Arceus things and lunar things might all
Like
go.
skeletons against the wall and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the sort that don't walk around and fight you.
Yeah. So one lucky Tito has asked, can we have a buff for the Ring of the Gods, as it is now heavily outclassed by the Ring of Suffering imbued version? And the prices of it have crashed.
Yeah, why not?
I think it makes sense for it to be the best in slot prayer ring.
Did he say what?
Nothing in particular.
At the
but
moment, I think is it +4?
plus
which is-
8 imbued, I believe.
I think it was a 2 and whatever it is. The imbued versions are now exactly the same with their prayer bonus, which is.
I think we've got a reason to buff the prayer bonus. Have you got the results of that straw poll, Rowan?
I'm getting more, it was 77% yes.
Okay, so you voted the straw poll. We have lost the results, but Modron has informed me that you voted 77% yes for the idea of a GE in the Permanent Death
There's
Man.
about 650 people who voted on it, which coincidentally is more than the people playing Permanent Dead Man. Which was interesting. There we go.
Shall we do a straw poll on buffing the Ring of the Gods as well? Maybe in terms of how much you'd want it buffed.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I can't see anyone saying no buff.
Yes. So, my name is Mo asks, can we see a mining guild rework anytime soon? And he's got a few ideas alongside it.
Do they include a deposit box?
They might do.
This is what I really like.
Coal,
to see.
gold veins and rocks. I don't know why it says rocks, that's a separate section. Addy and rune golems, and buff the wildy golems to be better than this, similar to how the Ents were added in the woodcutting guild. A pickaxe shop, furnace and bank, so a full bank probably rather than a deposit box. And some other higher tier rocks, and as well the invisible +7 boost.
You see, what I like about things like this, questions like that, is they actually come with ideas rather than saying, can you just update
Yes.
it? And it makes life so much easier to say, right, what do you think update means? And it just gives us a lot more to talk about.
I've actually thought about it a little bit, yeah. But I'm personally a big fan of the +7 mining boost. I think it fits in nicely with the woodcutting one. Obviously, it would be invisible. It's not going to allow you to mine the better ores. And sticking a bank in there makes it an actual usable place for mining.
It is a fairly small guild at the moment, consisting of a room with a door, some ladders, and 3 small dwarves up top.
I would happily have some offshoots into separate little caves with some of the higher tier ores in, I think.
Maybe we can give it a feeling of depth.
Perhaps. We seem to be good at that lately.
Yeah.
So, Jshin1 has asked, can the D-plate reward from raids require a D-chain to be created? The D-chain is currently very inexpensive in comparison to its rarity.
I do like when we upgrade something rather than just replacing it with something else.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It fits in nicely. I think that we'll probably do that. It makes a lot of sense if it's an attachment to that instead.
Yeah.
Ronan Sucks 23 has asked, can the stats of the light ballista be buffed? It is dead content at the minute, and it could be made into a viable weapon for low-level PKers.
How could it? It's already quite viable for low-level PKers. The problem is that most people have the requirement for the heavy one if they're actually.
Yeah, that's what I think. If you are a PKer with that sort of range level, it probably works very well.
There might be something else we can do. I've seen lots of suggestions come through. Some of them have been quite helpful. It's just finding the right thing for it.
I think the biggest issue is that some of its items are attached to the heavy ballista, and it really increases the price.
Yeah, so people are much more likely to actually make heavy ballistas if they get them items.
Yeah.
It
So
could
we
be
can
quite
come up with
radical
ideas.
and make it free to play.
It would be quite radical having a thing from a members quest that's free to play.
Yeah.
Javelins
Just
would
thought
maybe
giving
be free
it
as well.
a purpose which doesn't already exist. Looks like free to play PK in.
Then what would be the benefit?
Did free play have any special attacks? And this
Special
would
attacks
be
are a
one.
members feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just just thinking outside the box.
Certainly open to ideas on it though. Boulder Falcon has asked, can the gem bag from Motherload Mine please be updated to store all gems? Currently it can't hold topaz, jade and opal. And it would make it better for gem mining, which basically gives them gems.
I was going to say, who wants a lot of those? But depends where we stuck the data for it. If it's stuck on the item, then we'd find that a bit more difficult because there's a limit to how much you can put there. If it's per player, then we'd be all right. Does anyone remember how it's written?
No.
Would anyone be against it?
From a design point of view, I don't see why not. It just
Makes perfect sense.
at the time, we went with whatever we could fit in the amount of data available, I suspect.
I think that works. Hector Hines has asked, are mods allowed to AFK while you work? We'll go to Jed on this one.
Hopefully.
Well, unfortunately, you're not. And goodbye.
There you have it.
But no. Yes, I believe the rule is that as long as it doesn't impact our work, we're allowed to sit and AFK skills. Jed likes the AFK Nightmare Zone.
Yeah, that's pretty much how that account was built. Just started it up when I started working here, just to see how far I could get.
And now you've got an awesome account.
I don't know if I'll say that, yeah.
Getting there. Slayer Masters has asked, can we please get a chat box message for when you get other 1 in 32,768 drops, then a smouldering stone from Hellhounds? I see no reason not to add that to the Abyssal Demons one as well, and the Dragonfell Helm from Myth Dragons.
Can do. I mean, with the Abyssal Demons, you get stuff all the time, and it's not that rare that it's something you want, so you're looking at the ground all the time.
Yeah.
With Hellhounds, you almost certainly weren't looking at the ground all the time, because the hot debris dropping from its corpse is quite rare. But yeah, if they need messages to tell them that something's happened in the game, then we can do it.
Yeah. I wouldn't see any harm in having it done.
Although we've always refused to do a message when birds' nests drop. Well, a highlighted message and a warning and maybe a siren and maybe make it go straight to inventory in case you miss it. Because the bird's nest woodcutting function is a nice little reward for paying attention, which is something I do like to encourage.
Which is why the nests are only added at the drop very briefly. And we often get requests saying, make that thing last for as long as a normal item, but the whole purpose is that you're rewarded for paying attention. We got a question from the chat asking, can we please have a hint for Crack the Clue 5?
No.
Matt.
No.
Right, moving on.
No one's going to solve it, so...
I've seen people have been thinking well outside the box, coming up with anything.
It's been quite wonderful to see all the people coming up with their different solutions and playing around with stuff, and there's going to be no clues.
They have solved one little part of it.
No, they haven't.
Is that the
No
Feels
clues.
Bad Man?
No, the words that they managed to pull out.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite wonderful to see them all do it, but it's not going to... there's going to be no clues for it. The whole point of this is it's something to aspire to, and only those people who... or the first person to really put the effort in to solve it is going to get the solution. So,
That'll be a really nice reward for them.
The funny point about that is that even if I go and ask Matt and go, hey, what about this? He just looks at me and goes, no. Not even going to tell you anything.
We don't even know. You can tweet us all you like, but we can't tell you, because only Matt knows.
Didn't you program it?
Well, I know the actual solution, but I don't know how you actually solve the puzzle to get it.
So at least you know where the information is.
Yes, so I can go and get it on my account if I want it. But I'm not.
There is a big note in the code that I got Kieran to put on there before we get to it as a commented out bit, which sort of explains what the next bit of code is, and it says, "Never reveal this. We will get fired." That's the answer.
We get a lot of comments in the code that say things like that, though.
That doesn't surprise
do
me.
not ever edit this file without talking to Andrew, it says at the top of some file. The thing is, that was assuming Andrew was around.
Ron in the chat's crying.
Since these days he not so much. Well, one time I came across one of those comments and it said, go talk to Mod Nancy before you edit this file. So I went over, chatted to her about the weather and whatever, and then went back and got on with editing the file as much as I liked. I didn't say what to talk to her about.
Very nice, very clever. Neckbearer has asked, can we up the requirements of the Blast Furnace shop? Currently, every account can buy from this world. It's insane how many bots there are buying from it all the time on every world.
We cool with that?
What kind of requirements? Because if it's to do with the game, then the bots are going to have it.
They just said requirements.
If it's to do with the stats, then the bots are probably going to have it as well.
Yeah. It's an issue. I know that shop's actually fairly irritating for Iron Man because of this. Because the other accounts will have bought some of the gold already. and then the Iron Man can't use it.
Probably want to get Weath to have a look because he can get some reports back on what accounts are
Maybe
actually
that's a good
doing it,
idea.
and we can have a look around what would make a difference. And the way a lot of this stuff works is, we run studies on the accounts to do these certain things. That usually gives us an answer on what we can do to make a difference.
But yeah, if you've got ideas for any requirements that you think would work, do send them over as well. But if we can ban the bot straight up, that is the best solution.
Preferable.
Yep. Plubus has asked, will raids be accessible with Iron Men like Pest Control or Barbasol is?
So, later in the stream I'll be showing you how to put together a raiding party. For the moment there are no Iron Man restrictions in there whatsoever, and I would like ideally to try and keep it that way. And people suggested maybe let Iron Men only go raiding with other Iron Men, which we could probably do, but the thing is, if you're in a group, then what's it really matter whether it's a group of people who can't trade with you? So I'd actually prefer not to go with that kind of rule and see if we can get a nice reward structure that does not let Iron Men freeload and receive stuff from everyone else's efforts, but nevertheless lets them be part of the minigame like anyone else would have been. Anyway, that's still to come. I was talking to Kieran about it last night.
From what I've heard about it, it sounds perfect, and I'd have no issues with Iron Man doing it at all.
Thank you. But no, we haven't written any Iron Man restrictions so far. The one thing we have tried, that we have had questions about, is what if you want to go solo? Now, which is distinct from being an Iron Man. You can just be an antisocial player who's got free trade as much as you like, but you don't like hanging around with players, which is fine. We also don't intend to restrict you from going in there all by yourself, but we do intend to use designs and mechanics in there that are designed to be solved by multiple people. And for all, it's going to try and scale up to make things harder, make things use more people if you've got more people. We're not guaranteeing that every single tactic in there will just dissolve itself if you find yourself all alone. So we're not trying to cater to the solo player so much here, even though we will let you go in there and do what you can. But we're not looking at Iron Man restrictions right at the moment.
I think that answers that. Imperium RS. Why make Kodai better than Arams in every single way? Ronan would be the best person to ask this.
Okay.
Or Mod John C, and he's not here.
Can Ronan speak from over there?
He might be able to.
We can relay what he says.
He could shout. Okay, he's just saying.
Saying
Just saying.
He says
they
he
don't
likes
necessarily-
cheese.
They don't necessarily have to be. We can potentially look at balancing them so they do have their disadvantages as well. And it's something that I'd be keen on doing. Like the more niche usage we have, and we don't want to totally eradicate our own from the game, but still up for feedback more. But so if they have better suggestions for stats, let us know.
So effectively, that was we can rebalance it to add some disadvantages to it, so that it balances out nicely. If you've got suggestions, please do let us know. We're open to changing things. Nothing's written in stone by any means.
And
So
we
please
certainly
do talk to
don't
us and
want
let us know.
we don't want Arams to be useless, and I would go with the expectation that this is going to be a fairly rare robe set and will be very expensive as well, while Arams is affordable.
It does need to be very rewarding, and that's the big reason we wanted to make them very good.
Yeah.
Is to make it worth going to raids to get them, because it is going to be rare, like you say, from the hardest PVM challenge in the game.
What about perhaps making one of the robe sets that looks more sturdier or something like that into much more of a little bit of a tankier robe set, as opposed to, and then one to be just an attack based, to give both of them kind of their own uses depending on what you're doing with them.
Perhaps.
Seems
There's
sensible,
loads of
yeah.
ideas. I believe you're going to be making another dev blog within
Next week.
sometime next week. There'll be another dev blog up, and we'll have a little discussion before that and put in our ideas, and you'll be able to give your feedback on them as well.
Yeah. A player called Azia there says that we should try and make the robes repairable with Arams, which seems a funny way of repairing fabric, but...
What about Arams and D-stones?
I'd like to see the needle and thread you use to sew up your robes with Arams, but okay. Incidentally, what Matt's saying about nothing being set in stone, I don't know if you've been through a graveyard lately, but if you look at stones and what's been set in them, it all wears off after about 100 years. It's a bit naff.
Ash, would we be able to send you over there now? Well,
Yeah, I'll go over there now.
And you can prepare to show off your demo for the raid party finding stuff. which is really awesome, by the way. So while Ash is getting set up, I'll ask another question. This one's going to be for you, Jed, from Matt Ditka. When will we know what in the last man standing people be picked? I don't think that made grammatical sense.
Yeah, it's not really for me, but I think me and Ronan have the list now. We finalised it, so it's just a process of actually getting them invites out to people. Hopefully next week, early.
How big was the list in the end?
We ended up with nearly 15,000 people entering, and we have to bring that down considerably. Early next week.
Yeah, and they'll be sent out by inbox message. We won't contact you elsewhere for that. So are we good to move over to Modash now?
And here we go. So I have here two accounts who've been doing this the entire way through the stream, by the way. I set them up before we began. And one of them is going to show us how to form a raiding party. So this is Oddmod Ash, and she is going to come over here to the recruiting board and form the party. I should mention before we get going though, the graphics around here are not what you call done. We intend this to be a temple. You can tell because it says temple in pink. You'll see a lot of pink during the course of this, by the way, I hope you don't mind. And that's because, of course, I can start programming stuff long before the artists are available to work on the project themselves. So I've made this very hasty temple and put up a recruiting board in it. We also have a flight of steps to enter the dungeons. By the way, if you're wondering who it's a temple to, we're not saying just yet, pardon me. So, also, since of course we haven't got the artists on the project yet, all the graphics are just me plugging things together, and it's not going to look very good because, let's face it, it's a bit more of a priority for me to get the code in place before I start worrying about a pretty menu. So everything's a bit bare bones. I don't expect it's going to come out looking like this, and I also expect that we'll have a lot more, buttons and such like and features on it. But getting the structure of the party together was the first priority. So this player is going to make a party. You can see that Oddmod Ash is in a chat channel. It's got a boring name, and as they're in a channel, they can make a party. Great, so I've got a party. Now, the menu shows nothing at the moment, but it can show me my party, and I can choose to advertise my party on that menu so that anyone else coming and looking at it can see my party and how many people are in it. Going to need a bit more information on that as well, other data about the party, but for now I was just trying to show that I can at least get some data at all. So let's bring this other player along, Happy Dev. They get a lot of pink in this project, by the way, for the moment. Now this player is in their own chat channel, which appears to be called Cheese Boy. If he comes over to look at the board, he can see there's Oddmod Ash's party. Now make his own party, and he can advertise it too. So now they're both listed on that recruitment board. Refresh. Yep, here they are. Now, Happy Dev can decide, I want to look at Oddmod Ash's party. Actually, I like that party. It's got Oddmod Ash in it. That's a good thing in his mind because he's a happy dev. And so, right, I'll join that one. And he's seen the chat area. He's now switched to the other chat channel and is now in Oddmod Ash's party. And Oddmod Ash, if they refresh this, finds, well, party's gone. And in here, oh, yep, I've got two people now. Marvellous. Well, I think that's enough for Oddmod Ash to head into the dungeon. Ooh, a warning. Items left in the dungeon cannot be retrieved. Participants may be ejected at any time. Don't risk dropping items that you want to keep. Yeah, as with any instance content, you'll remember the launch of POH maybe. You go into a place where somebody can kick you out on demand and they invite you, just drop all your Armadillo God Swords on the floor, honestly, and you do it and then they kick you out. Well, you get upset because you can't get back in again necessarily. So it's a bit the same with these dungeons. You go in there, you put stuff on the ground, you're not going to go back in there to get it necessarily. So we warn you first. And when you're happy, in you go. Right, yeah, the artists haven't been around here either, so we've just got some placeholder graphics I cobbled together very quickly, and that's why it looks really quite ropey, especially around the joins. And I've used pink. The reason it's pink, by the way, is that I'm pretty sure that whatever Mod Ghost and Mod West put together in the end for us, it ain't going to look like this. So so I've used pink because that way if any of my graphics are left in by accident, it's going to be very obvious and we'll be able to see it and replace it, and we won't think it's meant to be part of the finished product when it isn't. Just turn off that. Okay, so this other player out here, oh yes, he can now enter the dungeon with, of course, the same warning. You don't have to click through it every time, by the way. I'm not completely torturing. And he can join his party leader. And here they are. They can see on the side panel the number of people in their party and the status where it says waiting for your leader to begin the raid. And this player can see likewise who's in the party, etc. Now imagine Happy Dev decides, hang on, I left the iron on. I'll just be back in a second. And decides to run out here. Bit of a warning. Yeah, decides to leave and stand back out here for a bit. This player, still on the inside, sees their name greyed out to indicate that they're not inside the dungeon and therefore will be left behind if the party starts. But that's all right. Happy Dev has found his handbag and is ready to come raiding, and is now back inside the dungeon waiting. So when Odd Mod Ash is happy, she starts the raid. Go. So the raid is now in progress, and if the player says, oh, no, toilet, gotta go, these pink skirts, won't be able to return, and indeed can't return, the party has started. But they're still in the same chat channel, and as a member of the chat channel, they can make a raiding party and advertise it, and go raiding in their own dungeon separately from Odd Mod Ash, which means that you are not restricted to one raiding party per channel. You can just only have one of them recruiting at the same time, but you're not completely locked from having another one. For what it's worth, I did put in the restriction that you need to be fairly high rank in a chat channel to be allowed one of these, to be allowed to set one of these things up. I think you need to be a captain, a bit like we did for some of the other mini games, Clan Wars and the Clan Cup. I think to send a challenge, you need to be captain or above. Anyway, so the two players in their separate dungeons can get on with it. There isn't a whole lot of content around here so far because, you know, I've not actually been on it very long, but you'll see as we travel through that there's various rooms with things in and occasional monster spawns and things that you have to be able to deal with before you can proceed. And oh, let's see if we can find our way all the way to the other end. Cheating massively, of course. Nope, no, that's not it. Where is the other end? Oh, yes. Oh yeah, some food, so you can do a bit of fishing while you're in there. And some of the monsters in there drop fishing tackle in case you didn't bring your own rod, and of course appropriate bait. I've tried to make these doors as convenient to get through as possible, and also there's not very many of them, so you can just run around fairly rapidly. And eventually you will find you can go deeper down this pink hole here and get to the next level where there's yet more. Now you'll see we've yeah, this one, it's got some roots. This is of course a placeholder graphic in keeping with the theme of the entire dungeon. It's well, looks a bit like coral, and if that is coral, and with a hatchet you can come in, you can chop through it, and that will make the dungeon a fair bit shorter for everyone else in your party if you can't do what I can just do. Anyway, I think that's enough of how to form a group, and oh, this is the other player still back in the lobby. Yeah, he's not going anywhere. It's the beard. So I think I'll send us back to the guys on the couch if Ronan would move the camera over. He's waving at me.
Looking very good.
That's actually the first time I've seen anything to do with braids. So cool.
The fact that it just makes it so easy to actually get in a team instead of having to go to all the effort of posting on the forums and everything like that. You can just do it in game. For themed world, I'm sure there'll be one. And there you go. So, next question, we'll move back to questions, is from Zoid. Can you please make right-clicking a game tile remember the coordinates for when you click walk here?
Remember Zoids?
Zoid?
You probably won't.
The magnet things.
There's a game thing you got, and it was like models of robotic animals.
No, I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember Zoids, but I do think this is engine work.
Yes.
It sounds like someone else's game. Did I miss something?
No, the question is about when you right-click and it remembering where you actually right-clicked rather than when you click walk here, that being the point where it
That
chooses.
seems reasonable. I'm not sure what's inside the engines controlling all that, but with any luck Ian can find it, you can give them the dev time.
I mean, assuming you don't move, if you right-click and walk here is right at the bottom of the list, it will be on the tile that you've right-clicked on. It's if you're running somewhere and you right-click while you're running, it won't remember that tile.
I think that it'd be very nice if it did.
Yeah.
It really would.
Yeah. Of course, it'd be quite fun if you click like that while you're running and you go a very, very long way and before choosing something and then try to run all the way back to find it again. I can see a use for that.
Next question is from Finesse Grey. Can the old school team abandon their position of not wanting to contradict RS3 law? This would open up a multitude of different avenues for quest progression that would allow old school RuneScape to have its own renditions of important quests.
The problem with that is it's not looking at it from purely an old school perspective, but from RuneScape as a whole, which isn't just old school. It's RuneScape, it's Chronicle, it's Idle. We've announced that, have we? I can never remember when we've announced ones and what we haven't. So and the new RuneScape as well. So but whatever new RuneScape we end up working on in the future. Now, if they all make sense when they work together, then the whole RuneScape world will make sense. The way I sort of like to sort of look at the way it works is kind of like Star Wars, where you have Star Wars, you have the 7 films, soon to be 9 films, which take the main storyline, and then you have all the other stories that go alongside. So you get the Boba Fett adventures, and you get the Rogue One adventures, and you get the what Han Solo got up to before he met Luke and all that sort of stuff. And they're the sort of stories we can fill in, but the whole universe has to make sense so that we can do that. So that's why we got. I mean, it makes no sense to have Gothic still alive in our game, but dead in the other one, if it's at the same time, you know. So it's
also
difficult.
realistically, were we ever going to say, all right, we'll write while Gothic sleeps, but differently to the other one? That would be possible. The question is, would it be as good as the other one? Well, it would probably be good in some ways, probably not so good in others, because nothing comes out the same way twice. And and you end up with, well, probably just disappointment from it.
Yeah.
From people saying, we're going to do While Gothic Sleeps, but it's different, or it's not quite the same, or I remember it better than that. I think we're setting ourselves up for failure if we try to mimic what exactly the other game did.
It would only ever cause disappointment either on our side or their side. If that's the problem. If we do 2 updates, but essentially in our own ways, very slightly.
It's a bit like how these raiding dungeons I just showed you, they're not trying to copy that dungeoneering skill from other RuneScape. They've, well, for a start, you're not limited to teams of 5 people with that system for getting into the parties of 5.
Indeed, yeah.
Partly because, you know, that could be quite frustrating back in the day trying to put together a party like that, and partly because, well, if you want to go with 6, 7, 30, we'd like to let you. And also, we're not trying to treat it as a skill. We're not trying to make you do the same thing repeatedly to gain levels and do the exact optimum kind of dungeon to get the best XP rate for it. We'd like you to be able to take your party and have a randomly generated experience down there that's going to have a lot more variety than just the placeholder we've made so far, by the way, and give you something to back yourselves against for a bit. That sounds a bit indelicate. Oh well.
Next up, The White Way asks, 70 plus prayer aside, will Augury and Rigor have any additional requirements? Specifically a defense one, as Piety needs 70 defense.
I had a quick discussion with Ronan about this, and we were thinking it makes sense to put the requirement on these higher level ones.
Mm-hmm.
Having the quest requirement, I'm not sure. I don't think that makes much sense.
I wouldn't put that quest requirement on it.
Yeah.
Not unless there was something you got from the dungeon you had to take to those knights to get it enabled or whatever.
The defense requirement for piety, does that just come from the quest requiring that? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to complete the night waves, and when your reward for doing it is that.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I think it makes sense because it would offer that defense boost alongside the massive magic boost. But
Maybe request a draw poll?
yeah, I think that's a good idea. So let's go. If we do augury and rigor, would you like it to have a defense requirement of 70
Is it?
or 65?
Yeah,
Is it
65.
Yeah, it wasn't 70.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a place for
The
moving.
question said 70. which is-
There's a place for moving requirements up over time as new stuff comes out, but I don't think this is it.
Yeah. Next up, Tuz Tug Vb has asked, can you lower the range and magic defense of the new raid mage robes and give them negative offensive melee bonuses? I think that's essentially the same question we answered before about giving them some disadvantages. So yeah, I think we'll look to do that, and the new raids dev blog for the rewards will be out next week, and we will try and address that one. Poseidon has asked, make firemaking burn the first log in the inventory. I've just seen the firemaking code.
Yeah. Would you like to, kill it with fire?
Probably.
See what I did there.
Why?
Yeah, what is the reason?
Good question. Why?
When you're training 99 or when you're getting XP, yeah, it's, yeah. Guess if you.
Oh,
It's
right,
because
so
you
you
can
have
put
it
the
at the
tinder
bottom
box
and you
next
do
to the
it.
bottom log and
Oh, I
just
see. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it would make it quite a lot easier.
Ed over there is saying something very quiet.
What Matt said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. 85% of people would like a defense requirement of 65 on these things.
Let's do
I
that
think
then.
that makes sense to do that then. Make it consistent with the melee version of those prayers.
So effectively, going back to fire making, it's making it easier to level.
It'd make it a little easier. How much of a pain would it be to change it all?
I'd like to delete it and rewrite it, and I bet we could do it faster and without those problems you ran into on the last lot.
Yeah.
And while we're about it, there's a blinking brutal fire making. I didn't say it'd be quick, but I would like to. I think it'd be quicker than how long it took to get all that stuff in the first place from the legacy days.
I think it's one perhaps to look at on the back for the backlog, and look at
No,
what we
it's
can
the
do.
front log they want.
The front log.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that makes sense. That's a terrible joke though.
Should I give up the day job?
Non-violence has asked, can you remove the dragon rewards from raids? It makes no sense that T60 weapons would be the main rewards from the highest PVM in game. Anything to add?
You'd kind of want a mix of items to come out of it. I don't know if anything new would be the best way to go about it, but you'd at least want something so there's a range of rewards, so it's not just...
Yes, I don't believe they're intended to be the top end rewards. They're just something that would be thrown in there as extra stuff to get from raids. The main rewards will be what we'll be talking about next week on the dev blog. We're coming from the mage robes, and what else we'll be proposing next week as well. Dreamlet asks, can we please pull augury with a magic strength bonus? You could calculate it as a separate damage modifier so that it doesn't have to increase the spell's max hit, but instead just help with damage consistency.
None of the other mages, you can't get mage strength from any other prayer.
That is the case. None of them have any prayer bonuses. I think the player has found that out and would like us to make a new prayer that does. I can see where they're coming from, although I also think that barraging would be fascinating if we went and did it. Now, the bit where they've said they don't want to increase the max hit and they would like to just go for more consistent hits,
Isn't that
There's
essentially an
scope to talk.
accuracy boost?
pretty much.
Covers that.
Yeah. I mean, we could maybe find some way of maybe reducing your max hit, but if it's low, we re-roll maybe, so that you're less likely to hit a 0. Although, again, we're just really talking accuracy boost at that point. Although I'm sure we could do the math if the players wanted it badly enough.
Yeah. Sweet Azu asks, could the Arclight be updated to affect the Abyssal Sire's spawns too?
Wouldn't that be just a case of adding the demon param to them?
Yep.
I think it makes sense. They're little, essentially baby sires, right?
That's right. The good thing is that when Maz wrote the Arclight, she very kindly went through the old code and replaced all the code for how Silverlight, Darklight, Arclight, how they all work. So it's now extremely easy to flag things as being triggered by them or not.
And then we'll do Necrail as well, we'll add it as well. I think we talked about that
Yes,
the
that's
other week.
vegan.
Yes, because they've got demon in their description.
Also, 42526, interesting name. And he's also very optimistic about the future of Old School. When can we expect virtual reality to be implemented into Old School?
There's nothing about our graphics makes me think that, but okay.
It has been implemented into RuneScape because we had that trial at RuneFest last
Yes.
year when they could go, or the year before when you could go around Elf City. It's not going to be anytime soon. Whether it will ever be, I don't know. It depends. I mean, the bigger question around virtual reality is how much of a commercial success is it going to be? I mean, it's a nice bit of technology. Is it actually going to create any games which are going to sell to anybody? And that's going to be the big thing to see if that happens. If that does happen, then we've got an argument to do
With
it.
Old School,
If it
I
doesn't
mean,
happen,
to make it work as an actual in-game feature, that is not just a gimmick. It's
I mean, it will be a huge job.
It would be hideous.
It'll
Could
be
you
similar
picture-
to moving it onto a new platform. So, I mean, it'll be a similar sized job to putting it onto Xbox or putting it onto PlayStation or any of these other things. So it's a doable thing, but the question is it make sense to do it? I mean, the hardware sales for virtual reality don't make me think that it is, certainly not in the short term, because obviously if you're going to play on VR, you need a VR unit to play with it, and the only ones
right now.
Yeah, the only ones that it's going to work on, or the only ones that are selling at any decent rate, are Samsung things that fit. You put your phone in. That's because they're giving them away with every new S7 they're selling.
yeah.
So there's a much bigger question than can we do it. It's more should we do it, and the market will decide that in the coming years.
You put them on in Old School, you just look at black. Oh, grass 10 meters in front of me, and then nothing.
I would like to. I mean, I think it would be quite a cool thing to do as sort of an internal company tech thing to see if somebody can get it working. As you know, but commercially, I don't see.
You'd have to think about the price to the player as well, because the game's built on to run on lower end PCs. But to be able to run VR, it's quite a huge expense, and having a beefy PC at the same time. So it kind of goes against what.
I have a little trouble understanding how you'd interact with it in the first place in a game that's got so much right clicking.
Yeah, that's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. I wouldn't hold your breath though.
Do you know what I think would be cool?
What's that?
Is augmented reality Old School. So like it projects it onto a desk in front of you, and then you like tap where you want to go.
Yes, I agree with that.
I think
That
VR
would be
though,
cool.
imagine with like a Vive, like having to use a Dragon Scimitar instead of actually having to just click an enemy and it attacks, you have to like swing every hit.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, no, I've always liked the idea. The first initial one was getting it onto the Wii. You have to use your controller to mine and chop. Yeah.
I want to see the dairy churn animation.
Try and two-tick woodcut with that implementation. Hero Light has asked, could we have the option to change our game frame GUI to one of the older or newer ones?
Something we're up for, especially the older ones. 2006 game frame is the one that we've actually got most of the graphics for available to us, courtesy of a player who sent them in. The thing is, that is a fair bit of dev work for what is ultimately just a cosmetic skin for your client. And it might be nice, but there's so many other things that players want as well that actually have content and can be played with, that we usually end up prioritising one of those instead of going for a purely cosmetic toggle thing. Sorry, we always have to choose because, finite dev staff, even if we got a lot more devs, we'd still have to choose which projects we do and don't do at any given time.
Tivels has asked, how will hidey holes work in the wilderness? I think it's a question for me because I'll be the developer of hidey holes. Essentially, they'll work everywhere else. Like everywhere else, there will be a little location, be it a rock, maybe probably not a bush in the wilderness, but you'll go to it, you'll be able to build it with planks or whatever as well to initially build it, and that honey hole will only store the storage for that emote clue. So you won't be able to go there and store whatever gear you want because you're getting chased by a PK. It'll only be the stuff that is allowed for that emote clue. So it really isn't going to be very useful for that. So I don't have any concerns in terms of the wilderness.
I take it there's no massively expensive items people use in the wilderness to do, which they could take advantage of.
Not that I know of.
No, I can't think of any either off the top of my head. I think just cursory grants when we do it just to make sure, but I think you're probably quite right.
I don't think there are even any master emote clues in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Can't remember. And the elites aren't asking too much. Spiderophobia asks, will we see any more quests soon in Old School RuneScape? I'm a quest lover and would like any quest, even if it's easy, medium or hard.
We've got a meeting on 3rd of August for where we plan out the next 12 months or so, so I'm sure we'll probably talk some quests then and see what we can come up with over the next 12 months or so.
For what it's worth, almost every dev loves the chance to write quests.
Yeah.
Unless you got put off by writing the last one.
He's had his fair share in
For
the
a
last
while,
12 months.
maybe.
Yeah.
Like a little break.
Zaya's begging for some, and
I think
that's
small
the
quests would
perfect
be
thing to
really
do.
nice, or even medium length ones, just to fill out Zaya and give it some kind of purpose to go to every small area.
Yeah, those little small quests that you find all over the game currently that really bring that part of the game world to life and gives it a purpose, because you know there's a storyline that goes on there, and I think quests are really, really good at that.
It would be good to take loads of little bits from each area, like where you've got the dynamite and the saltpeter and everything else, and have some kind of quest that will interlock bits of those so it brings the houses together, seeing as you get favour with all of them now anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we do have scope for a lot of storylines already built in as well. Like the Tower of Magic in the Arceus section is currently locked off. You cannot go in there. And I don't believe you can see any of the leaders of the 5 houses. They're all away somewhere, and they'll likely be characters that you'll end up meeting.
Although it is possible that Lord Kanda Hasidius is in the small toilet in the grounds of the vinery.
And you've known him for a long time via
Yes.
the Luna spell.
Yes, that Lunar Contact NPC spell has always had a random chance of talking to a guy on the toilet. Well, we finally found out where he was. He's just outside the vinery in Zaya.
Verkirk20 has asked, can we have a warning message when releasing chins? Are you sure you want to release your chin chombers? Something like that. So you can't release them by accident and lose lots of money.
Haven't we discussed this at one point? I think
Yes.
it comes up every now and then, but we never really...
Well, also whenever we get asked to put a warning on something, we get asked, of course, to let them take the warning off the something, and then we get asked to let them put the warning back on the something again. And sometimes when the game's not had one for a very, very long time, it feels like we're just inviting a world of hurt by turning the thing on and off again so much. But we can go there. It would, of course, mean that if you're in combat or whatever, then you're not going to be dropping your chins because you can't click through a menu. Personally, I could live with that.
What about setting the warning according to your ALC warning value? So you can only get the warning if you're trying to drop over a certain value.
That can work. For that matter, we could do that as a global thing for dropping valuable items, because they have a similar warning for this item is valuable, which currently is not tied to the ALC value warning. Might be give it a different value.
Yeah,
of course,
but in theory tied to the same similar warning.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, that'd be appropriate for chins.
Is there a reason why you can release them anyway? Is it purely because dropping an animal will mean it'll probably run away?
I think that was exactly what was done, and there have been various ways of making it fall on the floor through content that didn't run that check, by the way, over the years. But yeah, it was purely that if you let go of the thing, it scurries off.
Yeah.
All 2 billion of it that you might have just put on that one tile. They all, yeah.
A lot of exploding chin jumpers.
I want a graphic for that.
The Adamina has asked, could we get an Amulet of Eternal Glory? T.
It wouldn't be too much extra work to implement, but are you going to be like running invents of Amulet of Glory teas?
I would like to see people running Amulets of Eternal Tea. Amulets of Glory Tea.
Amulet of Eternal Tea, huh?
Can do, yeah.
I think it'd be a nice thing to add. Much similar, like make it a little bit,
Yeah.
put a little black ring around it.
I would be
That's all.
interested to see how many people actually go to try and get that though.
Yeah, because that would really be worth a lot of money, I expect.
Yeah. I'll be back at GD's.
For what it's worth, I was thinking last night about if we had made it so it was 1 in 25,000, but it did your whole inventory. So it didn't run the chance on every single individual glory,
Yeah.
but it ran it every time you clicked.
I
thing.
considered that, and I thought I would have just dropped all of my glories and picked them up one at a time,
Yeah.
if that was the case.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But the idea is, if that did it, you would get them all transformed.
Oh.
So you'd really be encouraged to bring 28 at once, or plus your one slot, and that would be very interesting when you're risking all of those eternal glories to get out of the wilderness. But it would make it very, very rare to actually even get one. But Dr. Zoidberg has asked, could we get another DK room? It's been a while. We pulled this in the past and it did fail. I believe we pulled it with the diary.
It was good, down as diary reward, but these days we've got Slayer boss tasks which could be used instead. Although it wouldn't go quite so well with that request from last week where they wanted to increase the number of monsters on the task to like 100 or something, because that would make the crowding worse.
I think to be honest, it's one of the questions I would like to repull. It comes up again and again, and I think it needs addressing.
We've also noticed that people sometimes get a bit annoyed if we just keep sticking more and more stuff on diary rewards. So if we do it on something that ain't a diary
I
reward,
think maybe it's a Slayer task only thing.
yeah,
I think that's another
a
approach.
nice one. And also, we may as well let them have access to the room when they're not on task, so that if they inevitably seem to die and lose their stuff on the final kill, which happens remarkably often, they say, then they can still go in and get it back again.
The other thing is, like, a lot of players even just like doing Rex and safe spotting Rex while people kill the other two. So it's just, every world at least tends to have a person in there using the room, and
Yeah.
so I'd really like to solve that problem.
So there's always, of course, the fact that with double the number of DKs, that means double the number of items coming into the game per unit time. So if it were to pass a poll, then that would affect the price of the things from them. If they're okay with that, then fair play.
Yeah. Beratho has asked, could we have robes similar to battle robes from pre-EOC? They had a chance to save a mind, chaos, death, or blood rune when casting combat spells. Did you ever use these robes, Jed?
No.
So I believe they were a reward from Fist of Gothics, and once you got them, they were untradeable. You had to obtain them. You could charge. I think you bought the untradeable one. You bought uncharged ones, and then you charged it by playing Fist of Gothics, and they're basically half the amount of runes you used. So a lot of players got them when they were going to train magic via Barrage or Blitz, like Rock Lobsters. I believe people use them a lot there.
I like the idea from gear to give you a chance at saving runes rather than if this one is always going to save you runes.
Yeah.
That seems
Yeah,
a bit OP.
there go the rune prices.
Yeah. So we can consider down the line armor that maybe gives you a small % chance at saving some runes from a cast. But
I think saving half your runes is quite a lot.
yeah.
I mean, you had to put a lot of effort into charging them and do it manually at Fist of Gothics, but it does affect rune prices dramatically.
Could you not do something like that? I know some people occasionally mentioned that the Barrow sets, the bonuses for having some of the sets perhaps aren't worth it anymore
Yeah.
for certain sets. Perhaps trying to tie it maybe in something with that, which would then give Arams the boost which we were asked earlier.
That might be a good solution to make that Aram staff and hood not terrible.
And a chance to do something with Torag, maybe, if we're looking at buffing barrows.
I think it was the so we got a big database of how many items are in the game a little while ago, and the broken version, so the Aram sets, like the staff 25 and the hood 50. There's so few of them in the game because no one's used them for that long. So you just literally had handfuls of them. Sphinctus. Interesting name. Can we get an update to the Giant Maul boss? As it stands, 1 minute 30 is way too long of a respawn timer. 30 seconds would be way better. The current hop worlds and crash everyone mechanic is so terrible.
Did we not say this last week?
I think we said last week
Yep.
that we'd be willing to hold reducing its respawn time.
Definitely.
Maybe it's perhaps something like 15, 20? Is that, if that's...
I think 30 seconds is thirding it, and
Because we do unfortunately have some members that have had to kill quite a lot of moles.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about 10,000 plus kills with a minute 30 timer on it.
He still wants that pet then, does he?
He definitely does still want that pet, yes.
yeah, we'll definitely pull that one, I think. Lily. Will you repull the recoil effect for the Ring of Suffering, but change it to be charged with Rings of Recoil instead of having an infinite recoil effect?
I think we'll definitely repull it being charged with something. Recoil Ring seems a sensible one to me. There was a lot of talk about making it the long-awaited Dragonstone sync, but Recoil Rings fits better.
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of the content probably come from the fact that it would devalue the Rings of Recoil a little bit.
Well, quite.
Maxell RS has asked, if you try to cast a spell that you don't have the runes for, your next hit is delayed by around 7 years. Can this be fixed?
Probably need changing for each spell individually, but might well be possible.
No, in the same boat, when you try to use a special attack and don't have the power.
Yeah, that one's particularly annoying because it's checking the special attack power way too far downstream. Mm-hmm. Ever since I made that enum list you saw the other day of how much power is needed for the attack of each individual weapon.
Check that up top, couldn't we?
Indeed.
As well as low down.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think that one will be a nice one to get out of the way. The spell's obviously a little bit harder.
Yeah, I'm always nervous about changing things involving the combat delay scripts, but I think we can pull this one off.
Someone's trying to spec by accident is a bit annoying.
Yeah, we did that thing where the special attack bar shows blue or green, but if you're going for pinpoint precision, you're probably not waiting for that.
Ludai has asked, currently with Wilderness Elite Task, kill Callisto, Venenatus, and Vetian. All 3 bosses must be killed without logging out or hopping worlds. This makes the task difficult to achieve. Can this be altered?
Didn't we
I
alter
think you can
that?
hop worlds now.
Didn't we change that like months ago?
I swear
I
we
think
did.
we changed it to hop worlds, but you can't log out.
We wouldn't have been able to write that.
I'm pretty sure we did that.
It's because when the diaries were first written, the dev who did them was having a bit of trouble tracking which multi-stage task he was doing at any given time. And since he was using a temporary variable for it, it reset if you hopped worlds or logged out. And since it was slightly unreliable which multi-stage task he thought you were doing at any given time, we thought that making that a permanent variable would just be asking for more trouble. After we kind of rewrote all the multi-stage tasks, it became safe to use a permanent variable for it, and I'm pretty sure we just did several months ago. So the player will hopefully find they can do what they're trying to do.
Alright, so I've got 3 quick questions left. We'll just blitz through those. Can we get an NPC similar to the Leprechaun that holds farming equipment for the balloon transport system? So something that store logs that you'll take them from instantly to transport, because it does.
It's a sensible idea, yeah. Sensible
Log
idea.
cupboard, yes.
Yes.
Does anyone know why in the heck it's leprechauns that stand by farming patches holding your tools?
I seem to have a file and came up with that.
No, I mean, I added leprechauns later. I just don't know why I was told to do it with leprechauns.
So you didn't come up with it?
No, I just programmed them and made the interface.
Okay. They're cool though.
Maybe they really hold tools and do lots of gardening.
This is not much blitzing through 3 questions.
No, that went wrong, didn't it? I was going to say something else. A log pile is what you want next to it. So you just have a pile of logs.
Or some species that exist just for this is one guy who holds your wood everywhere you need it to be, everywhere you need to light balloons.
And just hold your wood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Fingernail asks, can we get full wooden to go along with the almighty wooden shield?
Yeah, why
Like
not?
split bug.
Guess that's true.
Or just a lower
Doesn't match the
version.
style of wooden though.
Oh, wrong colour wooden.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But does that mean we'd have to gold trim it as well?
We have to
gold
go
trim
trim it
everything.
and have one for each different sort of wood.
Anyway, Moist Meerkat asks, could you implement a wearable tinderbox that would make the first option on logs light?
We can't do dynamic op text like that, sadly.
But you can hold a bow, can't you? And then, not on an op on the inventory, but if it's on the floor.
Yeah, I mean,
And
logs
then
on the
by
floor
that point,
have that
you
kind of
have no
thing.
need.
Yeah.
Unless we gave all of the logs an op, would we be able to switch them?
to switch them, we'd be having a new kind of log and changing which one's in your inventory all the time, which is way beyond us.
Yeah, I mean, alternatively, we could make it happen anyway, and all tinderboxes do it. But I think that is going a bit
Yeah, that's
beyond.
going too far.
I think
And making it easy.
Well, yeah, left clicking the logs in your inventory to go like that probably is the difference that they're
Yeah.
looking for.
But anyway, that brings us to the end of the stream. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.